So I appreciate your patience with me having to interrupt the normal flow of classes and for me getting behind. Okay, so what I wanted to say in response to your many posts over the political readings, especially the Delpit article about teaching speakers and writers of non-standard written English. Well, I went back and I've filled in the points for your required responses to discussion board posts for weeks 7, 8, 9, and 10, I think. And some people have been missing the required responses to posts over the readings, but no one missed the required responses to the Delpit and Rhodes readings, and that was the case last semester. Our students have a lot to say about that. Students who only have experienced thinking about English and the politics of it and race in America and all that just from the readings of their own lives, and then people who teach it different in different situations. So it was really interesting to hear all of your opinions that were so eloquently written and passionate and backed up by the readings. So thank you for those exchanges. I did want to point out, more than two things, about the Rhodes reading. I'm not going to assign it after this year. If I teach this class in the future, I'm just going to pick something different. I think my justification was I did want a reading about feminism and composition, but that is not the reading to assign for that. I didn't mean for it to be a referendum on value feminism today. And some of the discussion in the discussion board, I think, went that way, but also there's a difference between radical feminism in the 70s and radical feminism today and what feminism is as a whole, and I wish there was a whole class that we could take together on what that is. My understanding, just as a note, my understanding of feminism and why I consider myself a feminist is that feminism is the belief that men and women and people who don't identify as either should be politically, socially, and culturally equal, and that they are, at this point in history, not yet there. So we still need feminist activism and et cetera, et cetera. So not everyone starts with that definition. People disagree about whether there is equality. And I know that, and although I love to talk about feminism, I don't think right now is the time or place to do that. There was also discussion about whether composition, the composition classroom, is or should be a space for politics or political activism or thinking about political issues. And this has come up before in response to Berlin and other readings that we've encountered this semester. I just wanted to point out the language that people were using in their posts, that Delpit was using in her article, language describing, or words describing English that seem to be politically neutral or in praise of different kinds of English or disparaging different kinds of English. So the biggest one is standard English, standard written English, standard edited English, and their corresponding acronyms. I've seen these terms used in the last few years, especially standard English. So that appears to be neutral. But then if there is a standard, someone has set the standard, and if there is a standard, there are types of English that are not standard, they're substandard. And so just attending to that, the meaning of that word, and thinking about who sets the standard and what it means for some people to have grown up in a community where the standard English expected in school pretty much matches with the English that's spoken in their community, how that's different than the standard English expected in school and the type of English that's spoken, if it's different in the community that one is brought up in. Views on standard English can be in praise of it, like seeing that standard English as proper or correct or mainstream or normal. Other views on standard English can call attention to the specificity of its origins or the people that keep it as the standard. So to call it, to describe it as being something that standard English as being rooted in white, middle class, educated communities or cultures, to call it the privilege dialect, calling attention to its role as a status tool and not something that is neutral or just like clear or transparent or natural. And as Delpit said, some students who did not grow up in communities where standard English was the dialect that they mostly encountered would see it as alien and perhaps even oppressive. If people who use that, if their encounters with people who use the dialect of standard English had been the ones oppressing them, then they may have an identity conflict in choosing, if they feel like they have to choose either their home dialect, which is not standard English, or standard English. And she's saying they don't have to choose either or. They can basically be taught that they have a dialect, they can learn this additional dialect, and it is the dialect through which one accesses power in American society, whether that's just or fair or right or wrong. As she and the other people she quoted in her article, and as some of you noted on the discussion board, that's kind of the way it works. And so as teachers, we have a lot of choices regarding that. We can reject that that's true. We can reject that we should create an extra burden on students who don't have the standard English dialect mastered. So we can refuse to teach them that because that's not fair and we should just respect their own language. You read the article. So I just wanted to draw attention to those different words that are used to describe standard English and the term standard itself when describing that those types of usage. Anyway, so if you don't agree that politics are already wrapped up in language, how we use language, how language is used about us, how language and power play out in the composition classroom, I would encourage you, if you hadn't read through your colleagues, your classmates' posts on that Delpit and Rhodes discussion board, I would encourage you to read through those if you haven't already. There are a variety of perspectives, from a variety of backgrounds. So I will include in this announcement that I'm going to post this video on some texts that have really influenced me and how I think about and am able to articulate, or sometimes not articulate very well, thoughts about language and politics and the existence of privilege in American society, what it means, thinking about it in terms of class and race and gender. And one of those is a very short, very direct article published in 89 by a women in gender studies scholar named Peggy McIntosh. It's called White Privilege, Unpacking the Invisible Knapsack. And she's the originator of that term for white privilege, but she kind of assumes at the beginning of her article that her readers are going to accept the premise that male privilege exists. So she's using male privilege as like an analogy to point out the existence of white privilege. So I would encourage you to look over those things, even if you think you're not going to be, that you're not going to agree with that viewpoint. And I was trying to say on the discussion board post, like how I deal with sensitive, political, controversial topics in my writing classes. And the truth is that they don't come up that much in my writing class, but one way that they do, and it's something that I've taught recently, maybe I've mentioned this in previous videos, I include a reading. It's about correctness. It's called Correctness, and it's from Joseph Williams' Style, Basics of Clarity and Grace. And it talks about how language is political, and that my reading of it is that everyone has a political stance on language, because the fact is that it changes, and whether you think that that's a bad thing or that that's okay and that's even a good thing, that's a political stance of either conservatism or progressivism. So anyway, I assigned the students to my junior level writing class. We talk, I would like for them to talk more, but I try to initiate a discussion about standard English and the fact that it's kind of chosen, it's constructed, and that some people are privileged by it, some people are dominated by it. So just having that discussion is one way that I try to do some of the things that Delpit recommends in her article, like just drawing attention to that fact and framing language use as a choice. And then I also talked about how I try to mediate discussions that may get heated over controversial topics, trying to act as like a referee or supplying perspectives, like playing devil's advocate based on what I know about those arguments and those discussions in the culture that students might not know about, and just drawing them back to like, what is your evidence? What is your source for that belief? What do you think about what this person said? What do you think about this perspective that I'm introducing here? But honestly, it doesn't happen that much in my writing classes just because of what I teach. But I'm also like scared or intimidated to mediate those kinds of discussions. And so I really look up to people who throw themselves in there and understand that it will get messy and there will be conflict and people will disagree, but that's okay. So it was just all those things came up for me when I was reading your discussion board posts. So that's just over the Delpit and Rhodes. I still need to get to your reactions to the graph and swales. Was there anything else? Okay, on this announcement, I'm going to post some readings. One of the readings is it was a Harper's. Where was it published? Yeah, Harper's Magazine article from 2001, written by the late author David Foster Wallace. He's acclaimed as a novelist, but also as an essayist. And the article I'll post is called, in the magazine, it was called Tense Present, Democracy, English, and the Wars Over Usage. It's very long. David Foster Wallace has a very idiosyncratic style. It can be difficult. It gets very playful, but it's convoluted, kind of smug sometimes, I'll admit, but I love reading his essays. So in the middle of this essay, you can skim down toward the middle and find the kind of block quote where he goes over a spiel that he gives to his black students as a professor at, I think he was at Indiana University in Bloomington, why he understands that the prestige dialect of standard English, it's not a fair society that we live in, but he maintains it's his job to teach them that, and the reactions that he's gotten as a result of confronting his students with that. It's all like the whole article. It starts out as a review of a dictionary. You can skim